Hey A&Pers, this is ANP2 lecture test 5 video, I think 4. I think we're on 4. So we're going to talk about the urinary system. We are also covering urinary in lab. So lab material, lecture material, you know how that works. Overview of the urinary system. Let's draw the urinary system. First, let's look at how it develops in babies. Okay. So here are the little kidneys turning into kidneys. And the glomerulus is going to be the knot of capillaries. Excuse me. And then the renal corpuscle is going to be the little cup around it. So those are developing. And then here you have little nephrons, which are the functional units of the kidneys. And then the connecting tubules, collecting ducts, major calyx, ureter, the whole shebang, urinary bladder. These are all a lot of these lab terms that we are going to need to know. It didn't work. Arrow? Did the arrow work? Okay, there we go. All right. Basic concepts. These are kidneys. They make urine. The ureter carries the urine to the urinary bladder, which stores the urine and then squeezes it out the urethra. Okay. So our drawing is kidneys, ureter, kidney, ureter, and they actually hook into kind of the back of the urinary bladder. That's too big. And then it comes out the ureter. Urethra, not ureter. Okay, and micturition is the term for urination. Red is not going to work on this background. Let's try black. Okay. Excretion is when you remove the waste from the body fluid to make the urine. Elimination is when you discharge those wastes from the body. Homeostatic regulations are first bullet. Blood volume and blood pressure. You regulate these by peeing more or less. We talked about the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system with EPO, renin, and all that good stuff. Second bullet. The regulates the concentrations of sodium, potassium, and chloride, which is Cl-. So you pee out more or less of each of these ions to maintain homeostasis. Also, urinary system maintains your blood pH by making you pee out more or less of hydrogen ion or bicarbonate. Hydrogen ion if it's too acidic, bicarbonate if it's too alkaline. And next bullet, conserve nutrients and remove wastes. That was the penultimate bullet. Ultimate bullet, last bullet, to help the liver with detox. So it makes proteins usable for ATP production in starvation. Are any of these things important? Oh yeah. Kidney problems can be fatal, so that's a thing. And notes, bottom of page 8, we did the homeostatic regulation. Retroperitoneal. The kidneys are behind the peritoneal membrane. T12 to L3 region. Left is higher because on the right is the kidney. And the adrenal glands are little snow caps on top of the kidneys. Next. I'm in the way. Okay, so here you can see T12 to L2, T12, L1, L2, L3. So kidneys are very sensitive. I've had boxers come through the class before, and they maintain that they would much rather take a punch to the face than a punch to the kidneys. So there you go. I'll take their word for it. Next page. Oh, and here is a great shot of, I guess I'm not in the way anymore if I'm talking to this side. Here you see the stomach, the spleen, and right along this edge is the parietal peritoneum lining the inside of the body wall. And then here it's visceral peritoneum lining the spleen and the stomach. And back to parietal peritoneum. And you see how the pancreas and of course the duodenum and the kidneys are retroperitoneal. They're behind that membrane. The kidney is in a fibrous kind of sac that's packed with fat that helps protect it. Still not fun to be punching the kidneys though. Okay, and another picture of their location in the body. Here we go. So then we have on the top of page 9, which looks like this for me, to draw the anatomy of the kidneys, labeling everything. And again, these are all lab terms, so if you haven't started lab yet, now is the time because you need these kidney terms for both lecture and lab. So if you don't mind, I will draw you a terrible rendition of a kidney. Okay. So we have, let's actually start with pyramids. It's pyramid. All right, that was terrible. And then off of each renal pyramid, because that's where the urine is made, off of each is a collecting space. Each collecting space is called a minor calyx. Okay, and then when the minor calyces get together, then you have a major calyx. The singular here, minor calyx, and the plural is a C, calyces, C-A-L-Y-C-E-S, calyces. So 1 minor calyx, 3 minor calyces. Okay, and then that feeds into the renal pelvis, which becomes the ureter, which carries the urine away. That's a U. Okay. Now, surrounding this is the renal cortex. I'm feeling the neon green. Okay, so this outer lining is the fibrous capsule. And then this next layer is the renal cortex. As you recall, the adrenal glands had an adrenal cortex, and the squishy gooey filling was the adrenal medulla. We're going to have the same thing in the kidney. So we've got a renal cortex, which is this outer bit. Okay, that's the same thing. And then inside, oh, magenta, that's going to do it. The inner layer is the renal medulla. Now, as you can see, the renal pyramids are part of the renal medulla. And then we have this space between renal pyramids that's supposed to be tall and thin, if you can draw. IRL is different than my drawing, of course. And these are the renal columns. Renal column. Silent N. Okay, so the renal column and the renal pyramid make the renal medulla. That could have been better organized, but there you go. The tip of the renal pyramid is the renal papilla, and that will become very important physiologically here in a lecture or two. That is an E. All right, never mind. Renal papilla. P-A-P. 1 P? Yeah, 2 L's. I-L-L-A. Double something. Double L. Okay, and then next, these spaces here, which are not in the renal medulla, I should change colors, is the renal sinus. And we will find fat and blood vessels in the renal sinus. And it's technically the renal sinus is outside of the kidney because it's outside of the fibrous capsule. Okay. So say we all. Next. Blood supply. Okay, so this is what I was trying to draw. Ah! I think I need a nap. But yeah, that's what that meant. True story. Okay, now let's talk about the blood vessels. And when I draw these, I'm a fan of highlighters because they're nice and bright. They come in different colors and they don't bleed through like Crayola markers. Crayola markers don't work at all, like for anything. Like they're terrible. Okay, and now I'm going to draw you this. You're welcome. Totally should have put a timer on. Okay, red for arteries. We're in the systemic circuit, so just red for arteries. Okay. Renal artery. Comes in off of the aorta. Okay. And then the renal artery splits into segmental arteries. Again, this is also lab material, so need to know. In fact, usually I don't spend time during the lecture doing all of this because usually we've already done it together in lab. But I made those lab videos a long time ago. So, and then up the sides of the renal pyramids, are interlobar arteries. It's an N, it's an E. Lobar arteries. And they go up the sides of the renal pyramids. Here, let me draw you a renal pyramid in the middle of this so you can see what I'm saying. There you go. I drew a nice renal pyramid, renal papilla, renal pyramid, whole shebang. Back to red. Now, arcing over the cross the top of the renal pyramids, I'm just going to draw them. Just give me a second. There we go. Arcing across the top is the arcuate artery. And this is a math term. If you take a circle and cut it but not across the center, then this part that you cut off is called an arc. With a C. Arc with a K is a boat. Okay. So the arcuate artery arcs across the top of each of these renal pyramids. I'm not drawing the line. And then the renal pyramids, of course, are the renal medulla. And then this surrounding it is the renal cortex. Go back a picture if you need to see that. And then radiating out into the cortex, like crazy feather eyelashes or some weird something or other. Radiating out into the cortex are the cortical radiate arteries. Radiating out into the cortex are the cortical radiate arteries. Okay. All right, now let me draw that bigger. So we've got interlobars, arcuates, cortical radiates. Interlobar artery, arcuate artery, cortical radiate artery. So we've got everything labeled. You can draw it up. Okay. Next, the cortical radiate arteries on the candy corn models are going to look like trees. And the branches off the trees are your afferent arterioles. A-F-F-E-R-E-N-T. If you call these afferent arteries on either test, it's wrong. These are arterioles. The smaller the structure, the longer the name. Afferent arterioles. And these are the branches off the tree. And then the fruit at the end of each branch, the knot of capillaries. Give me a second. It's called a glomerulus. Plural glomeruli. Adjective glomerular. Yeah. It's awkward. That's an L-O. G-L-O-M-E-R-U-L-A-R. Glomerulus. Actually, let's do the noun form. That's an S. So these are glomeruli. This is a glomerulus, which is a knot of capillaries. Off the other side of the glomerulus is the efferent arteriole. And the glomerulus is going to be where we'll get there. Let me teach you the rest of the anatomy of the structures and then we'll say what they do. E-F-F-E-R-E-N-T A-R-T-E-R-I-O-L-E. It fit. Okay, the efferent arteriole. And then from the efferent arteriole, I don't have purple. All right, magenta. You're going to have a capillary bed. And this capillary bed are the peritubular capillaries. They go around the renal tubules. Capillaries. So the peritubular capillaries are the capillary beds in the renal cortex. There are also capillary beds in the renal medulla, And those are called vasa recta. Okay, so after a capillary bed, we have blue. And then those veins go to the cortical radiate veins. And then they go to the arcuate veins, which feed into the, okay, I'm out of space there. Okay, so let's go back to cortical radiate veins, arcuate veins. I hate drawing with a mouse. Also, I'm terrible at it. Hey, but if I can draw it, all y'all can draw it. Because I have like no artistic ability or talent or skill whatsoever. Like, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. If I can draw it, all y'all can draw it. Okay. And then we have supposed to be an L, lobar veins that run down the sides of the pyramids. And then oddly, we skip the term segmental vein, and I'm not clear on why. So we go straight from interlobar vein to renal vein. And then that feeds into the inferior vena cava. Oh, it's terrible. I'm totally off screen. So, yeah. And that's what that looks like on my Noteset, which is pretty much just exactly what I drew for you. So there you have it. I forgot the timer, but we're going to assume this is enough. So this, we did 8 and 9. Okay, this has been A&P 2, lecture test 5, video 4, and we covered, I think, pages 8 and 9. So let me put urinary off to the side there so I know when we started the next chapter. All right. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. The education must go on. Dr. J out. Command Control